this isn't ideal, but it's better than nothing, and hopefully it'll give you some instructions that you'll be able to apply to doing your homework. Our timing is good in the sense that we start a new chapter today, and what we're going to be doing at the front end of the chapter is solving for inequalities. Now, an inequality is basically a greater than, a less than, or you might have a greater than or equal to, or a less than or equal to. You have pretty much all the information that you need to be able to solve these things, because they're very similar to what you've done before. Let's review the basic stuff here. You know that in order to solve for the x here, you would have to add a -6 or subtract a 6 from both sides, and you would get x is equal to 4. There's one answer that works for that x. But if I turn around and I change this to an inequality, let's say I have x plus 6 is greater than or equal to 10, I'm still going to add a -6 to both sides. And rather than bringing down the equal, I bring down the inequality. So I have x is greater than or equal to 4. Notice, that means that every number 4 or above will work in that inequality. When it says graph, what they want you to do is graph on a number line. Now you're going to put your 4 in the center of the number line, and you're going to put one number to the right and one number to the left of it. So that's a 3 and that's a 5. I always want to have my variable on the left hand side, and this arrow right here tells me what direction I'm going to shade in. If I have a solid line underneath the inequality, then I need to put a solid dot on that 4. The arrow points in that direction, so that's how I'm going to graph it. So I know that everything from 4 and above is going to work. Okay? Let's do another one. Do a few more. Let's say that I have this one. S minus 12 is greater than 65. Okay, in order to solve for the s, I have to get rid of the 12. If I want to, I can add the opposite of the second number. So I have a -12. To get rid of it, I would need to add a +12. So I'm left with an s is greater than 77. I'm going to draw my number line. If it says graph it, I'm going to put my 77 in the center, 76 to the left of it, 78 to the right of it. Notice I don't have a solid line underneath it. So I draw an open circle on the 77. Again, look at the direction that arrow would be pointing. That means everything above 77 is going to work in this equation. So 77.00001 will work. Anything from this point over, but the 77 is not going to work. Let's do another one. Okay, look at this one. I have 12 is greater than or equal to y minus 9. Now you'll notice I said the variable needs to be on the left-hand side. So I need to take this and place it over here, and that and place it over there. But be very careful, because y minus 9 goes there and 12 goes there. It's like a cut and a paste. But the inequality is pointing to the y minus 9, so it needs to continue to point to the y minus 9 down here. See how it switches because I switch sides? All right, to get rid of the minus 9, I'm going to add 9. So I'm going to have y is less than or equal to, and that's going to give me a 21 on that side. So again, I'm going to put the 21 in the center. I have a 20, and I have a 22. This time I put a solid circle there. my direction is going this way. See how it points that way? Now, this only works with the direction if your variable is on the left-hand side, so make sure you're very careful on that. Let's do one that has a negative answer here. Let's say I have Q plus 23 is less than 13. Obviously, to get the Q by itself, I want to add a negative 23 or subtract 23. And I'm going to get Q is less than or equal to negative 10. So I want to put the negative 10 in the middle, but be very careful because remember now you're to the left of 0. So your numbers actually go just the opposite of what you would think. So I'm going to have my negative 11 on this side and my negative 9 on this side, because remember from 0 you count in this direction. Again, all I have to do is look at the direction of my arrow. I have an open circle and it's going to continue in that direction. That means everything that's less than negative 11 is going to work in this particular equation. Sometimes you have variables on both sides that you have to solve. You know how to solve these already. We're going to do one without the inequality, and then we'll do one with the inequality. Let's say that has an equal sign in it. Obviously I have to get the 6p over here and I have to get the 7 over there because I got to put the two with the variables together. So let's take the 7 over first. I'm going to add a negative 7 to both sides. So I have 5p is equal to 6p plus negative 7. It will work better if you treat it as a negative rather than subtraction. Now I need to take my 6p over here, so I'm going to add a negative 6p. So 5p plus negative 6p is negative p equals negative 7. I can't be left with a negative with my p, so I'm going to have to divide by negative 1, and I'm going to get a p equals 7. Okay? Now, if I switch it though, and I have an inequality, I'm going to solve it the same way, but I'm going to bring my inequality down. So I'm going to add a negative 7, add a negative 7, so I have 5p is greater than or equal to 6p plus a negative 7. I'm going to then turn around and add a negative 6p to both sides. And I'm going to get a negative p is greater than or equal to negative 7. Now, this brings a rule in with inequalities that we haven't talked about yet, but if I divide or multiply by a negative number, I must switch the direction of the inequality. So I'm going to divide by negative 1, divide by negative 1, and I'm going to get a p, switch the direction of the inequality, is less than 7. So then when I graph it, my 7 goes in the middle, 6, 8. I'm going to fill in my closed circle there, and it goes in the left direction. I follow my arrows. Okay? That brings us in to more with our multiplication and division, because our rule is involved in both multiplication and division. That rule being the one that I just stated, that if you multiply or divide by a negative number to solve the problem, then you must switch the direction of the inequalities. This one, b over 7 is greater than or equal to 6. You know that if something is divided, that the way to get rid of it is you multiply. So I have b is greater than or equal to 42. Now again, number line, closed circle. See the direction of the arrow is going that direction. So that goes that direction. I didn't switch my inequalities because I multiplied by a positive number, not a negative number. Let's say, however, this was a -7. Then to get that b by itself, I would have to multiply both sides by a -7. Now I've multiplied by a negative number to solve it, so I'm going to switch the direction of the inequality. And when I graph it, now I have a -42. Remember, these go just the opposite of what you would think because they're negative. So I have a closed circle and it goes in that direction, okay? That rule stands for when you divide by a negative or you multiply by a negative to solve your problem. So let's say I have this, g over -3 is greater than 12. In order to get the g by itself, I would have to multiply by -3, multiply by -3, and I get g is greater than or equal to -36. Again on my number line. Now they don't always make you graph it, but if they say graph it, this is what it means. So I have an open circle, and notice which direction the arrow goes. It goes that direction. Now, again, your variables got to be on the left side. Okay, those are all relatively easy problems to do. Now let's do one more. We have to divide, and then we'll go on to the harder problems. -4x is less than or equal to -20. Obviously, to get the x by itself, you have to divide by a -4. Remember, when you divide by a negative number, you switch the direction of the inequality. So I have a 5, 4, and 6. I have a closed circle because there's a line underneath it, and it goes in a positive direction. All right, let's do a couple that are a little bit harder, just mathematically. Same concept, but a little bit more complicated. -2/5 p is less than or equal to -14. Now you can do this problem in two different ways, and so I'm going to split the board and do it in the two different ways. Obviously, to get rid of something that's multiplied, the opposite of multiplication is division. So I can turn around and I can divide by a -2/5. Remember, if I divide by a negative, I'm going to switch the direction of my inequality, and what I do to one side, I have to do to the other side. What I have left on the left-hand side is p. What I have on the right-hand side is -14/1 times, remember I have to invert and multiply, or keep, change, flip. And so I have that. Now I can cross reduce here. So I have a -7 on the top. And so I have a -7 times a -5, which is going to give me a positive 35. That's one way to do the problem. Here's another way to do the problem. You can look at this as -2p over 5 is less than -14. First thing I want to do is get rid of the 5 because it's the farthest away from the p. So I'm going to multiply both sides by the 5. I'm left with -2p is less than or equal to -70. Notice at this point I still have not changed. I haven't multiplied or divided by a negative number. This 5 was positive. So now I'm going to divide by a -2, and that means I'm going to change the direction of the inequality, and I'm going to get the same answer both ways that I do it. You can do it either way, it doesn't really matter. Let's do one more of that. Again, you can do it one of two ways, and I'll split my board again. -3/4 d divided by -3/4 is greater than or equal to -6. Actually, I gotta switch the direction of my inequality because I'm dividing by a negative. Divided by negative 3/4, okay? If this is multiplied, the way to get rid of it is to divide it. So what I have left here is D. On this side, I have negative 6/1 times negative 4/3. Again, I can cross reduce, dividing both of them by 3. So I have D is less than or equal to positive 8. If I do it the other way, I look at it as negative 3D over 4 is greater than or equal to negative 6. First thing I'm going to do is get rid of that positive 4. It's divided, so I'm going to multiply to get rid of it. So I have negative 3D is greater than or equal to negative 24. Now I want to divide by the negative 3. Remember, if I divide by a negative, I switch the direction of the inequality. So then I have D is less than or equal to 8. One more here. Let's say I have negative 8Q is less than 136. I'm going to go ahead and put the assignment on the bottom here because I'm about to run out of time on the video. So page 321 through 322, 14 through 32 even, and page 329 through 330, 14 through 42 even. Okay, that gives you your homework assignment just in case the video cuts out. Hopefully we can check this tomorrow. So I'm going to divide both sides by negative 8, and I'm going to get Q is less than or equal to, actually I got to switch the sign because I divided by a negative, so I have 136 divided by negative 8 goes in there 1 time, with 5 left over, that goes in there 7 times. A positive divided by a negative is a negative. So that's going to be your answer. All right, so that's your homework right here.